we'll continue on with the next topic, and the next topic is WSUS. Okay. So WSUS, if you've never heard of it, is actually a way of automatically updating our Windows computers. And obviously, you're probably thinking, yes, that automatically happens anywhere. My computer always tells me that it's being updated, and it goes and I need to restart it, and sometimes it takes a long time. But obviously, when you're updating your home computer, that's actually downloading the updates from Microsoft's update site, isn't it? Okay. But what WSUS server allows us to do is actually become the update server for our network. Okay. So what does that mean? So instead of every computer on this network, let's say there's 1,000 of them, all going off to the internet and downloading, like let's say it's a service pack, it's 500 megs. Instead of each of the 1,000 computers downloading a 500 meg file from the Microsoft updates that's on the internet, we'll just download it once onto the WSUS server. Obviously, the benefits are, you can see that the benefits are pretty self-explanatory. Instead of downloading 500 times 1,000, that's 500 gigs of data, we're downloading only 500 megs of data. Instead of our WAN link being flooded by this download process for updates, it's actually going to save the amount of data that's going to go through our WAN link. So therefore, it can be used for other purposes, like serving our clients in other ways. So there's many benefits. What's even better is that, like on your computer at home, do you actually choose what updates you install or don't install? You pretty much are told that Microsoft, you need this update. You get it, you install it, and that's it. End of story. Okay, you can obviously tweak that a little bit, but it's pretty much like that for most people. But obviously, with Microsoft updates, if you're not aware, sometimes these updates, whether it be to Office, to Windows operating system, or to any other Microsoft products, in the past have actually caused more problems than they actually fixed. Let's say they got a patch which is important, they fixed this problem, but as an unintended result, they actually broke something else. Okay, we've had situations like that where they've actually updated Office, and we had that SPS counseling enrollment tool that we use to counsel you guys during term before the term starts. That actually stops working because some package that was part of the Office was actually disabled by default as a result of that update, rather than being turned on. And obviously, there's probably a good reason. A good reason might be that the security-wise, it's a good thing to turn that off by default if you're not using it. But because of that update, our specific tool that was used for counseling and enrollment stopped working. So you don't want to be the first. That's a general comment, okay? Don't be the first. Don't be the hero that goes and installs the update as the very first person, and then be the guinea pig, basically. Okay? So usually, as a general rule, me personally, I like to wait around a bit. Okay? So I like to wait at least a week for update. Okay? So for example, if I'm running a network and all these computers needs to be updated, I don't want to necessarily install that update straight away. I want to wait a week to see if anyone else is having problems. Okay, if obviously if someone else is having problems and you see that their situation is similar to yours, chances are you'll probably have those same problems. And if you waited a week, maybe someone's already found a fix for that problem. So therefore, instead of just going in blind and having telling your users, sorry, we applied this update, now everything doesn't work properly as you expected, you can say, hey, we applied this update, now you have to do step A, B, C, to make sure that it's still working properly for you, because now we have a fix as well. So what WSUS allows us to do, like I said, is to download those updates, keep it local on the WSUS server, and it allows us as an administrator to approve these updates, yes or no. Okay? Yes or no for release. What does that mean? That means we could have a whole heap of computers, like I said, 1,000 computers, but then there will be some computers which are servers, some computers which are workstations, and maybe we'll have some computer which are production machines, and some computers which are testing or development machines. So wouldn't it be great if we could actually say, hey, these important updates which we just got, I won't approve it for the production computers, the computers are actually doing the job for our users and providing a service. I'll approve it only for the development and testing computers. Okay, so this might be a small group of computers which has the same configuration as your regular production computers, and as a result of proving it for them, I can see what the results are of this update. I can see if that problem that everyone was experiencing on the internet is actually going to affect us or not, because in that testing environment, I could have exactly the same software, exactly the same configuration, and I apply this update and I see. Is it going to work? Is it going to be a negative impact? Is there going to be any issues that I need to actually resolve before I give it to my clients? Wouldn't that be better than working out that there's a problem after you've actually given it to your clients? Okay, so if you actually discover there is a problem, you research, you do your troubleshooting, you work out there's a solution. Okay, well, wouldn't it be good if we actually, now we're ready with an update and a solution, that we actually apply those updates to the production machine with a solution rather than just applying it and having problems and no solution? That doesn't, it definitely makes you look better, doesn't it? So that's what WSUS is aimed for. There for us to do. It allows us to download updates from Microsoft, keep it stored locally, so we download it once, then allows administrators to actually give those updates to the clients and machines on our network by approving them based on the type of machine, the group of machines, and we'll do that in our worksheet. So today's objective is to give you an overview of WSUS, which I sort of already did, but we'll get into a little bit more nitty-gritty of it now, and we'll actually deploy updates with WSUS. A word of warning, when you're working through the worksheet, the initial downloads of the updates, okay, as you can imagine, if all of us are actually getting us WSUS to download those updates initially, it's going to be slow, isn't it? Okay, so if you find that your updates or downloading of the updates are too slow on the TAFE campus because everyone's doing it at the same time, or everyone's or our internet's being throttled back so that these updates don't get higher priority than other traffic. Okay, so I would suggest you maybe do this one at home. You're on your own internet connection. You're not affecting each other. And obviously, if you've got a decent internet connection, you probably could do this worksheet a lot faster than what you could do in class. Specifically with the proxy server. You know that TAFE SA has a proxy server, right? So before we can go to the internet, our computer actually goes to a proxy server, which is on our network, and that proxy server goes to the internet, gets the resources, and gives it back to our client computer, which is asked for them in the first place. So that proxy server actually complicates things a little bit for us in class. So therefore, what I'm saying is, if it takes too long and it's not working properly in class, do it at home for homework. Okay, just mainly if you only did that update process at home, that's all you need. Okay, but this is one of those worksheets that, because of the situation we're in class, doesn't necessarily work the best. Works better probably where there's no proxy server, when you're on your own internet connection, not sharing with hundreds of other people. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so what I tried to describe before was what we'll see now. So what WSUS server does is WSUS server sits here. It has obviously, it's part of the LAN, local area network, but it also has access to the internet. Okay, whether that be because it's directly connected to the internet. Okay, in our worksheet today, we'll actually add a secondary network card to this server, and we'll actually make that bridged. Okay, which is fine, but in real life, it doesn't need two network interfaces. It just needs a way to the internet. Okay, that might be using the RAS or using a router that connects us to the internet. So on the internet, there's the Microsoft update site, okay, which is basically what everyone uses around the world to get these updates that's released every month, basically. And obviously, from a security point of view, it's good to always update your computers. We all know that. Okay, the easiest way to keep your computer safe is to lock it up with physical security, keep it updated with the patches and security releases, and also have an antivirus, anti-malware. Those are the basic things you can do to your computer to keep it safe. If you don't keep it updated, or you don't have it physically secured, or you don't have antivirus, that's when your server or your computers become very easy targets. Okay, so keeping updated is very important. So that's why this WSUS is a really important part of our updating process. So like I said, instead of all of these computers, just in this diagram, we can see there's about 8 computers on this LAN. Okay? Instead of them all going to the Microsoft updates and downloading each of the updates to each of these computers, which actually floods your WAN link, it downloads excessive data if you're actually on some sort of data plan, potentially, but mainly it's going to actually consume up the bandwidth for that purpose rather than for another purpose. So instead of downloading it just those 8 times because there's 8 computers here, potentially there's thousands of computers. Like for example, on this campus, there's literally thousands of computers in all the different classrooms and so forth. So instead of doing that, we actually, our Windows Update Server, or WSUS, we're going to download it from the Microsoft site to the local storage here, and it's going to be stored here. Okay? And the beauty of it is that we, as administrators of this network, now we can actually have some control over what updates are approved, who to which group of computers they're approved to. So if you look at these, we've got some test clients here. Okay, this is a testing group of computers. Okay, so let's say we've got a brand new service pack, creators update for Windows 10. Okay, you might have had that recently on your computer. Okay, it might have taken you a long time before it rebooted. Okay, and I'm seeing some nods here. So instead of actually applying to all the computers on your network in one bang go and discovering there's potentially problems, we have a few test machines. They're set up exactly like your other production machines with a standard operating environment, or SOE. And then we're going to just approve those updates, not for everyone, but specifically for this test clients group. Okay, once it's approved, it gets deployed, it goes through all its update process, and then we actually inspect it. We inspect that everything's still working and functioning, and all the core key parts of our computer is working. What does that mean? If we're a accounting firm and we have a piece of accounting software that's written by a third party, and we've just updated the operating system here, who's to say that that particular accounting package is still compatible with this newly updated operating system? Did it close some ports? Did it actually disable some services? Did it add some new services? Did it update some DLLs or dynamic link libraries? And now that particular piece of software is no longer compatible. Okay, so this is where we go off and test our most important programs and make sure they're all functioning correctly. Okay, if they're not, then we don't deploy it to the rest of the production computers. Okay, if they're not functioning, if there's a problem with these test machines, we just do not approve the updates for the rest of the network. We wait and see if there's a fix. We wait and see if there's a recall on that patch, or if there's a newer patch that fixes the problem from that patch, or if there's actually a solution that's actually for our situation specifically. Okay, so we wait for that. Okay, but if it does test okay and all our functionality is still there, then we can actually approve it for the rest of the network without having the fear of having a whole uprising of users that say, I can't do my mission critical work anymore because I can't use the tax program. Okay, the accounting program. So you guys getting what I'm trying to say here? This gives you, the administrator, control of what updates are approved and to which computers they are approved to, and saves you bandwidth as well as downloads, because it's only downloading it once and it's actually kept local. And obviously these client computers are going to get it a lot faster than this WSUS server got it in the first place, isn't it? Because when it's downloading at WAN speeds. Okay, so if you've got, like if you've got what's an MBM with 100 megabit link, let's say, okay, that's a pretty fast one at comparatively. But even if it's 100 meg link, this is only one link, isn't it? Whereas on this LAN, we have a minimum of a gigabit network, isn't it? And who's to say that we don't have multiple network cards on this server that's been configured as network load balancing or NIC teaming, which gives us even increased bandwidth. So basically, these computers are going to get it way faster than if they downloaded from the internet. So it actually minimizes the downtime. Okay. So WSUS deployment options. So WSUS implementation, so you can implement it as a single server. That's fine. That's exactly what we're going to do in our worksheet as a single WSUS server. And for most small to medium sized networks, that's fine. That's exactly what you want. Or you can implement it as a multiple server. Why would you do this? It might be because your network is so big and distributed that it's not all on the same network, or you're connected to many other networks. Like for example, TAFE-SA. In order for us to get onto the internet, we actually are not just using the TAFE-SA network. We have to actually then link up with the government network of South Australia. Then we get to go to the internet. So if that's the case, why should we only have one WSUS server for the whole of government for South Australia? Or maybe we should have a WSUS server at every site of the TAFE campus, which then links up to the WSUS server that's on the government network that we connect to. Okay? Because at each one of those points, every site is actually using a WAN link to go to the next site, isn't it? Okay, so that's going to be slow. So same reason we might have a WSUS server in the first place. We might have multiple WSUS servers that are interconnected with these WAN links of a distributed network like TAFE-SA is, with all the different campuses and connecting back to the SA government network. So that's where we can have multiple WSUS servers. So basically, we would treat each WSUS server like a WSUS server, and the WSUS server is connected to is the upstream WSUS server. And that upstream WSUS server, almost to us, is like that Microsoft update site. Okay. Another deployment may be a disconnected server. What does that mean? It means that what if you have a network that's so secure that we don't want to be connected to the internet at all? Okay, let's say we're working for a company and it's like a highly secure company, like we use the example of British Aerospace or the other day. We're a defense company. We don't want people to somehow upload design blueprints of the new submarine up to the cloud, for example. Okay, I know this is exaggerating a little bit, but so we don't even allow for internet connectivity. But we still want to be updated. Okay, we still want to have the functionality and have our computers which are actually going to have the features that work properly and not have bugs all over it. So we still want to update. So what a disconnected WSUS server is that it's a WSUS server that's not connected directly to the internet. You go and go, hey, if it's not connected directly to the internet, how the hell are we going to get the updates from Microsoft server? So we could pre-download the Microsoft updates. We could physically take it to this disconnected WSUS implementation, and we can actually get those updates from this storage. Okay, so instead of actually downloading it directly from the internet, we're giving it to it in another storage method. So WSUS hierarchies. Hierarchy means there's different levels. Remember how I talked about all the different sites of TAFE-SA, which is connecting, making up the TAFE-SA network. Then we actually connect to the SA government network, which then connects to the internet. So we're talking about hierarchy, the internet, Windows updates. We've got the TAFE-SA government network. Might be a couple of WSUS servers in there, because when we're talking about the government network, we're talking about SA Health. We're talking about the police potentially. We're talking about the court system. We're talking about all sorts of government institutions. Okay, so they all might have different networks. So there's different hierarchies, different levels of WSUS servers. So with the WSUS hierarchy, we can have an autonomous mode, which means it's responsible for itself. We can have a replica mode, which means it's replicating from other WSUS servers. So the WSUS database, it can use an internal Windows database, okay, which is what we'll use. But ideally, you'll probably use a SQL database, okay. And obviously, SQL database requires you to install the Microsoft SQL server onto your server that's on your network, and the WSUS server can actually then use it. So with the WSUS update management process, there's a couple of phases, and let's have a look at this diagram. There's phase 1, assess, set up the production environment. Phase 2, identify, discover new updates and determine if the updates are relevant. So obviously this is the setting up the environment. This is where our WSUS server is actually downloading all the updates from Microsoft Updates. And as administrators, we determine which ones are applicable or relevant. So phase 4, test updates. Okay, so don't deploy it directly on your production machine. Test it. Make sure there's no unintended problems. Determine how to update the production environment. So once it passes the test, determine how you're going to update it. Then finally deploy, approve, and schedule the updates and review the whole process again. Okay, so basically that's what we're going to do. Obviously today we're going to do phase 1 and phase 2, and then we're going to use our computer groups to approve updates for a group of computers, which is potentially this testing thing, as well as the deploy thing phase. Server requirements. So obviously this is a whole list of things that the server needs to have. And to be honest, I don't need you to remember this stuff. Okay, this is one of those situations where if I need to know it, I'll just look it up. Okay, there's no point in trying to memorize all this stuff. But having said that, sometimes those Microsoft exams expect you to know some of these details, unfortunately. So let's have a quick look. We need Internet Information Services. That's IIS. That's the web server, if you remember. Okay, IIS is the web server, 6 or newer. Okay, so believe it or not, our clients will actually be trying to get the updates from our web server, which is integrated to our WSUS server. We need the Microsoft .NET Framework 2.0 or newer. We need the Microsoft Management Console 3.0. We need Microsoft Report Viewer Redistributable 2008 or newer. And we can use one of these different SQL servers or use the Windows internal database. In our example worksheet today, we're going to just use the internal database. That's just easier. But for larger deployments, you may want to use a SQL server. Okay. The hardware requirements: 1.4 gigahertz or faster 64-bit processor, 2 gigs of RAM or greater, and 10 gigs of available disk space. Okay, so obviously this is a minimum. 40 gigs is recommended, and to be honest, storage is not that expensive these days. Okay, don't forget this is going to store all the updates, isn't it? So it's going to download updates from Microsoft. It's not just Microsoft operating system updates either. Don't get that confused. It's any Microsoft updates. That could be updates for Office. That could be updates for Exchange server. It could be updates for SharePoint portal server. It could be any of the Microsoft updates. So the more space you have, the more updates you can store without running out of room. So in order for our computers to actually use our WSUS server as our update server, we need to tell them to use it. Okay? So by default, they just want to go to the internet and use the Microsoft update site, aren't they? Okay, that's what they want by default. That's what they've been configured by default. So Microsoft has configured it really conveniently so that all these client computers know how to get updates and they get it from the internet site. We don't want them to do that. We want them to do it differently, don't we? So in order to tell them to go to somewhere else, we have to use group policy objects to tell them to go to another server. And that's our WSUS server. So you'll see in our worksheet, there's a couple of group policy object settings that we need to configure, and it will tell her when to check for updates. It will tell her who to go to check updates from. Okay, and just a quick note: at this point is where most people make the mistake. Okay, at this point, when we're putting the settings in, I'll go here on this port number to get your updates. This is where most people make the error. Okay. So if you're finding that you can't get the updates, go back to the group policy object, check that the settings are correct, and do the GP update force to make sure that the client machines are getting the updates, restart the client machine, and see if it's working again. Okay, so this is the point that most people make a mistake. Not saying you guys would, of course, but if you do, that's where I would check first. Okay. Yo. Yes. So it's Windows Server Update. So it's only for Microsoft products. So if you've got other products like Adobe or something like that, then they have their ways of updating the thing. I know usually they're from the internet, okay? Directly. Yep.
Can you push
Drivers, no. If it's a driver update, if it's an update through the Microsoft updates, yes. But if it's just a driver that you've got and you want to put it in there, no. Okay, so if it's like a driver update like you sometimes have, non-critical updates, then yes, okay? And obviously, that's obviously the drivers that comes from the Microsoft side, the built-in drivers, rather than the specific drivers from the third parties that you might have got the hardware from. For computers running older operating systems, okay, you should automatically download updates, automatically install updates. You should set them to do that as well. Okay, so for these ones, you can automatically download updates and do not automatically install updates. So when we're deploying with WSUS server, you can use the WSUS Administration Console. So you're probably sort of familiar with the Microsoft Management Consoles these days. It's just a framework where you got something on the left pane, you got something in the middle pane, and you maybe got a right pane. You know, on the left pane, you got different nodes, areas to go into. You click on it, then in the middle pane, you see the details. And on the right pane, usually you have some actions. So it's like any other Microsoft console, and you've seen plenty of them in this subject. With that console, we can manage the updates. Okay, so we can see what updates are available. We can see if it's been synchronized. If it's synchronized correctly, we can actually configure whether to approve those updates. We can configure what's called computer groups. So computer groups, remember groups of computers? Maybe we have that testing group versus a production group. Or maybe we have a client group versus a server group. It's up to you how you configure it, okay? We can view the computer status. We can view the synchronization information. When we're talking about synchronization information, it's synchronization information to the Microsoft updates. Did it download updates? Did it download it successfully? When was it downloaded? Okay. We can configure and view WSUS reports, and that reports will actually show us which computers have been updated, which computers were not updated, and so forth. And we can also use this console to configure WSUS settings and options. Some of these WSUS settings include your proxy setting. Remember how I said in the classroom we have a proxy server? We actually have to put the proxy server details in and the authentication details in before we can actually, in our classroom, get to the internet. So don't forget, our proxy server here doesn't allow anyone just to go to the internet. It allows people who are authenticated in our Active Directory to go to the internet. So it's not going to just give anyone any access. The reason for that is twofold. One is that we don't just give anyone any access, because that access can be abused to access naughty places or places that people shouldn't be going to. Okay, let's say someone went to some sort of I don't know what's a animal fighting website. That wouldn't be good, would it? Okay, especially on a TAFE computer. And secondly, it actually, because you're authenticating with your user account on Active Directory, it actually knows who you are. Let's say you did put in go to animalfighting.com or something like that, which is totally bad, and I'm not saying that you should go there. I'm saying that if our administrator sees that you've been blocked from going there, because we've got our proxy, as part of our proxy, we can actually block content. You might have seen some of these blocks already. Okay, because if you go to somewhere that's not strictly educational, they might even block you based on it's not an educational website. Okay, and you'll be surprised how many of those things actually come up as that. Sometimes I'm surprised by something that comes up as in that category when they shouldn't be. Okay, but it's not perfect, but it's basically allows us to block the user and also log the user. Same as what we talked about before with auditing. We have a way of actually keeping track and auditing what users are doing. So in our WSUS server, because we're going to use these proxy servers, and to be honest, none of us are in charge of the TAFE SA proxy, are we? So we have to actually tell the WSUS server to connect to our proxy server to go to the internet, but as us, because we're all allowed to go to the internet, but we got to tell our proxy server that we're going to use our account to authenticate against the proxy server in order to go to the internet. In Windows Server 2012 or 16, WSUS also includes PowerShell commandlets for administration. So I've been saying that all along, haven't I? Anything you can do with your graphical user interfaces, you can do with PowerShell. Same with WSUS, no different. What are computer groups? So I think we have a basic idea what computer groups are. You can use computer groups to organize your WSUS clients. By default, there's two groups. There's an all computers group, which basically if you actually use the WSUS as your update server, you'll be detected by the WSUS server as a computer, and you will go under the all computers and computers group as well as the unassigned computers group. Then after that, you can create your own customized computer group. Like I said, a test computers group, a production computers group, or a client's computer group, server computers group, up to you, okay? And then you basically just add the computers you want from the list of all these computers which are coming in, and we can actually put them in the right groups. So updates needs to be approved before they're deployed to your computers. Okay, so you have control over that as the administrator. You approve the updates. The updates can be approved automatically, and this is not recommended. Like I said, don't be the first. When you're at home, you think about it, if you're at home and it's your computer and you put an update on there and it doesn't work properly anymore, how many people are affected? Just yourself, person who's using that computer, isn't it? So it's not I know it's bad for you, but it's not bad for lots of people. If you're the administrator and you apply a proven update that's going to be deployed on 1,000 computers, and that's 1,000 people sitting on those computers that can't do their work anymore, then it's a lot bigger deal than just you not being able to use your computer properly, okay? So don't approve automatically. There's another setting, can be declined if they are not needed, remove if they cause problem. Okay, so there's a couple of other ways of other settings. Updates should be tested before they're approved for production. So I've been saying that all along. Don't be the first. Don't deploy an update you don't know the consequences of. And if there is a problem, don't deploy the update or at all until you have a solution or workaround, or you have an updated update that doesn't have that problem. You must so configuring automatic updates. So you must configure the client computers to use the WSUS server, and like I said, you can use group policies to configure clients, including the following steps: how often to check for updates. Okay, in group policies, you can tell them to check updates every night at 3 a.m. if you wanted to. Obviously, if it's that computer's not on at that time, then that's not going to work. Okay. So update, you can also configure the update installation schedule. So if you're going to say check for updates at this time, but do not install, install updates at this other time. So it means that maybe we should install updates out of hours rather than in the middle of the day when the person is trying to get their work done. Because like I said, last Friday I did my creators update for my laptop, and I thought it was just one, I didn't realize what update it was. I thought, oh, it's going to be one of those quick ones where restart, come back on, and I'll be able to use it in maybe 10 minutes time. But it took so long. It took so long that I decided to use my other computer, and I got frustrated. I just went home. It was about 4 o'clock at that stage, so I just went home, and then I came back in on Monday. It was all working again. But you can tell that if you do the updates at the wrong time, it could affect someone's working ability to do work, isn't it? So that's not what you want. You're wasting your company's time, those workers' hours, that they could be doing their proper productive work. Automatic restart behavior. So do you want to automatically restart the computer? Well, again, if you automatically restart the computer, what if the person is actually on the computer doing some work at that point in time? Okay, that could be very disruptive. It could possibly even mean that person is going to lose some work that they've actually not saved yet. So with the restart behavior, you can have a couple of options there. No, I don't think that is talking about that. It's talking about, do you warn the computer, warn the user? Does it restart automatically? Can the user actually postpone the updates, postpone the restart like you've seen before? But it doesn't test whether the person's logged in or not, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, that's not going to worry yet. Okay, if it's locked or wherever, it's still going to have that behavior. So if it's restart in 15 minutes, unless you postpone it, then it's going to restart in 15 minutes. And if no one's sitting in front of it, they can't postpone it, can they? If someone is sitting in front of it, then they can postpone it, and then it won't restart. And what about the default computer group here in WSUS? So if you have 10,000 computers on your network and they suddenly come up and pop up in WSUS, you're not going to sit there and drag one computer at a time to the appropriate groups, are you? So with the default computer group setting in the group policies, you'll be telling it, hey, when you pop up in WSUS, you'll be automatically assigned to the such and such computer group. Okay, it could be the production computer group is your default, and you have a testing computer group, you drag computers out of that. Okay. WSUS reporting. So update reports. You can update the status summary, update the detail status. We can update the tabular or table-like status, and the tabular status for approval updates. There's computer updates. So with the reporting, there's these different areas basically. Okay. And there's computer status summary, so of the computers, which ones I've updated, which ones are not. And then you could actually have a look at the details as well as in a table format. There's also a report you can look at the synchronization updates, the synchronization results. So synchronizations was when you're downloading updates from the Microsoft update site. With troubleshooting, so with anything, as we all discovered in this subject, with anything, there's always a possibility just because you think you've done everything correctly that it doesn't actually work properly. Okay, and trust me, with the WSUS server, a lot of people are going to find they're going to have problems. Okay, because they've not missed a step. They've some things they might have typoed some numbers in incorrectly or some settings in incorrectly. So if your clients do not appear in your WSUS server, that's what I was talking about. That's the most common problem. Your clients do not appear in your WSUS server. Check the GPO, the group policy objects. Check the client settings. When your WSUS server stops, you should check the database server or reinstall the WSUS. Okay, so if the database server can't be talked to, if it's using a separate machine for the database, then it cannot run. Okay, when you cannot connect to WSUS, you should check the network connectivity, like just basic networking stuff, like ping, the IP address, and all those kind of things. But obviously, just because I can ping and I can connect with the basic networking doesn't mean a particular service is running or the ports are open. So checking the service, trying to telnet. Telnet is actually an older program, but we can actually connect to a computer on a certain port. It's like a port scanner, if you like. It's basically working as a port scanner in this example. Or you can just get a port scanner and scan the HTTP and HTTPS ports because it's relying on that IIS server as well. If you encounter other problems, you should use the server diagnostic tools or client diagnostic tools, and don't forget the event viewer is a good place to go when you're totally stuck. You can have a look at the logs to see if there's anything specific to WSUS, take the error ID, take the description, put it in Microsoft TechNet, and see what comes up. Okay, so basically we're not telling you what the common problems are, we're just telling you some methodologies for trying to troubleshoot these problems. All right, so that was a quick one, short and sharp. So what I want you guys to do now is actually keep on working your assignment. And obviously, if you're up to where you're meant to be, and you're up to the WSUS server, then work on that.